All right, buckle up because today we're diving into one of the most intense, strategic, and frankly exciting mock drafts of the entire offseason. And trust me, this one has everything: bold trades, risky picks, future stars, and a clear vision for how the Pittsburgh Steelers could reshape their roster heading into the 2026 NFL season. And if you're a real fan who lives and breathes black and gold, this is exactly the kind of deep dive content you've been waiting for. So make sure you stay all the way through because every single round tells a story and builds towards something bigger, something that could define the next era of Steelers football. And before we even jump into the picks, let's talk about the stakes here because this isn't just another mock draft floating around on the internet. This is part of a full-on battle, a competition where only one channel earns the right to drop another mock next week, and it all comes down to engagement, likes, and fan support. So right now, as you're listening, imagine being part of that push. Imagine being the reason this channel wins that battle, because the Browns already threw down their number, they hit over 500 likes, and now it's up to Steelers Nation to respond. And if there's one thing we know, it's that this fan base does not lose, not on the field, not in rivalries, and definitely not in a content war like this. So as we go through this draft, think about what you would do, who you would pick, and whether this strategy actually takes the Steelers closer to a championship, because that's the ultimate goal here, not just filling holes, but building a roster that can dominate. And speaking of building something dominant, let's kick things off with round one, pick number 21, where the Steelers go wide receiver, and not just any receiver, but a player who is rapidly climbing draft boards and turning heads across the league, a guy who brings energy, explosiveness, and that undeniable spark every offense needs. Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. And this is where things get really interesting because this isn't just about adding another name to the depth chart. This is about changing the identity of the passing game, because while the Steelers already have size and physicality at receiver, what they've been missing is that consistent ability to separate, to create space, to threaten defenses vertically in a way that forces coordinators to rethink everything. And Concepcion brings exactly that. He's the kind of player who can stretch the field, turn short passes into big gains, and keep defenses guessing every single snap. And when you watch his tape, you see flashes of brilliance, moments where he just takes over a play with his burst and creativity. And yeah, there are areas he needs to refine, especially when it comes to efficiency in route running, because sometimes he relies a bit too much on flashy moves instead of timing and precision, but that's coachable. That's something you develop at the next level. What you can't teach is his natural playmaking ability, his instincts, his ability to turn nothing into something, and that's why so many people who study the position are high on him, because they see the upside. They see what he could become in the right system, and when you pair him with the current receiving group, suddenly things start to click. Suddenly you have a mix of size, speed, and versatility that can challenge any defense, and most importantly, you give your quarterback more options, more flexibility, more ways to attack, and that's where this pick really pays off, because it's not just about the receiver himself. It's about how he elevates the entire offense, how he opens up space for others, how he forces defenses to adapt, and that ripple effect is what makes this selection so valuable. And from there, the strategy shifts into aggressive mode, because the Steelers don't sit back and wait in round two. They make a move, they trade up, sending multiple picks to climb the board and secure a defensive playmaker, a safety who embodies everything this franchise stands for, a hard-hitting, instinct-driven defender who plays with intensity and purpose, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. And this is the kind of pick that feels like it belongs in Pittsburgh, because it's not about hype or headlines. It's about toughness, about reliability, about finding someone who fits the culture and brings that edge to the defense. And Warren does exactly that. He's the type of player who flies to the ball, who makes his presence felt with every tackle, who has that natural feel for the game that you can't always measure, but you definitely notice. And when you consider the uncertainty at the safety position, the need for depth, the potential for future turnover, this move makes even more sense, because it's not just about today, it's about setting up tomorrow. It's about having someone ready to step in when the moment comes and continuing that tradition of strong physical defense that the Steelers are known for. And then just when you think they might settle down, they go right back into attack mode with another trade up, this time targeting the offensive line, because protecting the quarterback and establishing the run game is always a priority. And they land Kalen Rutledge, a powerful guard with the ability to anchor the line and bring stability to the interior. And this is where you see the balance in the draft strategy. It's not all skill positions and flashy picks. It's about building a complete team, strengthening the foundation, making sure that every unit has the talent it needs to succeed. And Rutledge brings that physicality, that consistency, that ability to control the line of scrimmage. And while there may be questions about where exactly he fits position-wise, whether he shifts sides or competes for a starting role, the important thing is that he adds depth and competition is what drives improvement, what pushes players to elevate their game, and that's exactly what you want in a roster. And as the draft moves into the middle rounds, the focus shifts toward versatility and upside. Players who may not be immediate stars but have the tools to develop into key contributors, like Oscar Delp at tight end, an athletic weapon who can stretch the field and create mismatches. someone who doesn't have to carry the load right away but can grow into a bigger role over time. And that's a smart approach because it allows the team to invest in the future without sacrificing the present. And then you look at the offensive line again with Markel Bell, a massive tackle with raw power and the kind of physical presence that can dominate in the run game. And while he may need time to refine his technique, the potential is there, the foundation is there, and that's what makes him an intriguing pick. And then you add another receiver in Donnie Stribling, a player who brings toughness, blocking ability, and that gritty, do-the-dirty-work mentality that every team needs, and suddenly you see a pattern emerging, a clear vision of what this team wants to be: physical, versatile, explosive, and unselfish. And as the draft enters the later rounds, it becomes about taking chances, about finding hidden gems, about betting on traits and potential, whether it's a defensive tackle who plays bigger than his size, a hybrid offensive weapon who can contribute in multiple ways, or a quarterback who might not be a top prospect, but has the tools to develop into something more. And that's where Baron Morton comes in, a late-round pick with intriguing upside, someone who could benefit from time, coaching, and the right environment. And while there are no guarantees at that stage of the draft, the risk is minimal and the reward could be significant, and that's the beauty of those picks. They're low-risk, high-reward swings that can pay off in unexpected ways. And finally, the draft wraps up with another defensive addition, a linebacker who can contribute on special teams and bring energy to the roster, rounding out a class that touches every part of the team: offense, defense, special teams, starters, depth, future development. It's all there. And when you step back and look at the entire picture, you see a draft that isn't just about individual players, but about building a cohesive unit, a team that can compete now while also preparing for what's next. And that's what makes this kind of mock draft so fascinating, because it's not just speculation, it's a blueprint, a vision of what could be, and now it's your turn to weigh in to decide whether this approach makes sense, whether these picks move the team in the right direction, whether this is the kind of aggressive, forward-thinking strategy that can bring success. So as you think about it, as you break it down, as you imagine these players in black and gold, ask yourself one simple question: how would you grade it? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about: evaluating, debating, and getting ready for the real thing. Because when draft day finally arrives, everything changes and the future of the franchise starts to take shape right in front of us.